Keys.
We love each other. I mean, we hang out with each other. We go to dinner together. Our family is one big, beautiful family. We're doing Thanksgiving.
Right.
That's very big
so
of
you did see the credit card statements and
I
saw
did. I
that-
will say I did. That's true.
and it matched up with the tour that Alicia Keys was
Totally.
on. And you were like, But you didn't suspect anything was going on between them prior to that.
Nope.
So it was a complete shock.
I've been waiting for so long for this goopy to have something to say. You run around stealing people's husbands and that woman invited you up in her house thinking that you was an artist and you was coming there to steal her husband, Alicia Keys.
The Alicia Keys interview they tried to wipe from the internet finally leaked. They called it a fairy tale. The piano prodigy and the super producer, two crowns from the same kingdom, building the kind of love the rest of us only get to dream about. But every fairy tale's got a first chapter nobody likes to read out loud. And Alicia Keys' love story didn't begin with a wedding. It began with another woman's marriage. Back in 2009, while the world was still humming her melodies, a letter dropped online. Raw, public, unfiltered. And the woman folks had crowned America's sweetheart suddenly had another name attached to her. Homewrecker. That's the cruelty of this business. It'll sell you the magic and quietly hand you the bill. And Alicia carried both. Most folks think they already know how this one goes. The blended family, the smiles, the we worked it out press tour. But peace like that is never free. And what it costs to get there runs messier, deeper, and far more human than the headlines ever let on. Then, 15 years in, just when the storm seemed long behind them, a single whisper came back to test it all over again. So before you judge what you've heard, sit with me a minute, because the truth behind Alicia Keys' love life isn't the scandal you remember. It's the one nobody ever told you.
Blew up to surprise you, Alicia. Guess what he found? You somebody else and you were supposed to be his girlfriend.
Every fairy tale has a girl before the fame, and hers grew up where the lights of Manhattan didn't quite reach. Hell's Kitchen, New York. Back then, it wasn't the polished neighborhood folks know today. It was concrete and noise and hustle. Sirens bleeding into the night. The kind of block that either swallows a kid whole or sharpens them into something the world can't ignore. And in a small apartment there, a little girl named Alicia Ogello Cook was being raised by her mother, Teria, on her own. One woman, one daughter, and a piano standing in the corner like a promise nobody had cashed yet. She was just 7 when she first sat down at those keys, classically trained, her fingers learning Chopin and Beethoven long before she'd ever learn what the industry would try to take from her. That piano wasn't a toy, it was armor. While other kids ran the block, Alicia ran scales hour after hour, the discipline of a classical musician folding quietly into the soul of a girl who already had something to say. She was a kid raised between two worlds, the strict order of the conservatory and the raw pulse of the city outside her window. And somewhere in between, she found a sound that was entirely her own. Soul music with classical bones. Hip-hop heartbeat under a concert pianist's hands. You couldn't manufacture that in a boardroom if you tried. By the time she was a teenager, the talent was undeniable, and the industry came calling the way it always does when it smells the real thing. She caught the eye of Clive Davis, one of the most powerful men in music, the architect who'd shaped legends long before her. There were early deals that nearly buried her, contracts that almost packaged that singular voice into something safe and forgettable. But Alicia held on to the one thing she refused to surrender: control of her own sound. And in 2001, her debut album, Songs in a Minor, didn't arrive as a whisper. It arrived as a coronation, announcing a young woman who wrote her own songs, played her own keys, and refused to be packaged like everybody else.
I got more takes on you too, Alicia Keys. Alicia fraud. Alicia, I'll do anything to not look gay. So I'll steal a woman's husband and separate a family.
There's a beauty in watching somebody arrive on their own terms. In a game built to manufacture stars, Alicia showed up already whole, already herself, classically trained and soulfully grounded. The kind of artist folks swore came around once a generation. The world looked at her and saw purity, promise, a voice that felt like church on a Sunday morning. She wasn't dancing for the cameras or chasing a trend. She was sitting at a piano, eyes closed, pouring something honest into a microphone. And the world leaned in. But the same gift that made her untouchable, that fearless heart that let her play her own way, was about to pull her toward the one man who'd change everything. Because before Alicia Keys was a wife, before she was a scandal, she was just a girl from Hell's Kitchen who believed in the music. And the man walking into her story next was already somebody else's husband.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we will get another Alicia Keys album.
Yeah, definitely.
So will you still be working? Because every album she's done, you guys have pretty much worked hand in hand, and you've done the majority of it. Will it be the same way?
Yeah, same.
Funny thing is, they'd already met. Years back, before the Grammys, before the Gold, two young New York kids crossing paths the way folks do in this business. And the story goes that Alicia found him annoying, brushed him off, nothing there but a passing hello. He was Kasim Dean, but the world knew him as Swizz Beatz, a Bronx-bred super producer with a sound rattling speakers from the clubs to the charts. Two crowns from the same kingdom, and back then, they barely registered each other. He had his lane, she had hers, and neither one was thinking twice about the other. Timing, though, is a strange kind of magic. By around 2008, they reconnected, this time in the studio, two grown artists at the top of their game, and the chemistry that wasn't there as teenagers came alive over a soundboard. You know how it goes, late nights and shared melodies. The way building something together can blur the line between collaboration and something deeper. The beats kept rolling, and somewhere between the verses, something personal caught fire. They spoke the same language after all. The language of music, of rhythm, of two people who understood the loneliness that comes with being the most talented person in almost every room.
I've been waiting for so long for this goofy ass to have something to say. You half man run around stealing people's husbands and that woman invited you up in her house thinking that you was an artist and you was coming there to steal her husband, Alicia Keys.
It didn't stay a secret long, because Swizz let the world in himself. He hopped on a remix of Drake's Best I Ever Had, and all but announced that Alicia Keys was his. For two people this big, that was the equivalent of skywriting it over Manhattan. The whispers turned to headlines. The headlines turned to a story. And suddenly, the piano prodigy and the producer were the couple everybody was watching. There's a real beauty in that. Two artists finding each other not in some manufactured Hollywood setup, but over the very thing they both lived for. When it grows out of the work like that, it feels destined, like the universe was just waiting on the second meeting to land right. But that's the part the studio lights kept hidden. While Alicia and Swizz were falling into each other over those late-night sessions, there was a woman at home, a wife, a mother, a name about to enter this story whether anybody wanted her to or not. And what the world celebrated as a love story, she was about to call something else entirely. Her name was Mashonda Tifrere, a singer in her own right, an artist with her own dreams, and back in 2004, she had become Swizz Beatz's wife. 2 years later, they welcomed a son, Kasim Dean Jr., KJ, they called him. And on paper, they were a family, a marriage, a home with a child in it. So while Alicia and Swizz were falling into each other over late-night beats, there was a woman across town living a very different version of the same timeline. One where the headlines about her husband and the world's new sweetheart weren't a love story at all, but the slow unraveling of everything she'd built.
And I looked at your face, and you had all that Maybelline caked up in them craters, looking like a whole new island in Hawaii, just volcanoes everywhere.
In 2009, Mashonda decided she wasn't going to stay quiet about it. She took to Twitter, public, raw, unfiltered, and wrote an open letter that pulled the curtain back on the fairy tale. telling Alicia she knew the role she'd played in the ending of her marriage. Just like that, the headlines flipped. The piano prodigy folks had crowned America's sweetheart now had another word hanging over her name, the one no woman in this industry ever shakes clean: homewrecker. And the internet, the way it does, picked the story up and ran with it. No nuance, no patience, no room for the complicated middle where real life actually lives. Here's where the story splits, though, and it's only right we hold both sides. Alicia and Swizz have always told it differently, insisting the marriage was already over, that he and Mashonda had separated before anything began between them. One woman says her home was broken into. The other two say they walked into a house that was already empty. And the truth, like most truths in matters of the heart, lives somewhere the cameras never reached. We may never know the exact order of how it all fell apart. And maybe that was never really ours to know.
She's the reason I was born and raised in New York, and she's also the reason that she exposed me to so many things. Look at that beautiful woman. She took me to to as many Broadway plays as she could.
That's the cruel arithmetic of fame. When you're that visible, your private pain becomes public property, and folks pick a side before they ever hear the whole story. A marriage that ended, however it ended, got played out in real time in front of millions, reduced to a hashtag and a headline. 3 real people, 3 real hurts, and a whole internet ready to judge. The world had already made up its mind about Alicia Keys, but the scandal wasn't done with her, because it was about to collide head-on with the most personal chapter of her life. In July of 2010, Alicia married Swizz Beatz, and she didn't walk into that marriage alone. She was carrying their first child, a son they'd name Egypt, the kind of beginning that should have silenced every whisper. A few years later, in 2014, they welcomed a second boy, Genesis, and the family folks said, started in scandal, kept right on growing. From the inside, it must have looked like love had won, like the storm had passed and the fairy tale had finally found its footing. 2 babies, a home, a partner who understood her world. On paper, it was everything.
I'm loving it. I'm feeling centered. I'm feeling powerful. I'm feeling clear.
And you're looking gorgeous. I mean, part of that is it's internal, but it's external too. You've just kind of started a movement here.
But the world doesn't forget that easy. While Alicia was building a home, the headlines were still building a narrative. That same old word, homewrecker, trailing her like a shadow she couldn't outrun. Right around the era of her album The Element of Freedom in 2009, the music she poured herself into kept getting crowded out by the drama folks would rather talk about. The piano, the voice, the artistry that made her a once-in-a-generation talent. All of it competing for airtime with a tabloid story that refused to die. Imagine pouring your soul into a record only to watch the press skip past the music and head straight for your private life. That was the contradiction she had to live inside. In public, she was America's sweetheart, the soulful prodigy with the flawless image, while in private, she was a new wife and a new mother carrying a scarlet letter the press kept reapplying, no matter how real her family became. 2 truths in the same woman, smiling for the cameras, while the comment sections sharpened their knives. It's a heavy thing, building something beautiful on ground the whole world swears is cursed, carrying the joy of your boys and the weight of the judgment without ever getting to set one of them down.
The term gangster rap was so over sloganized during that time.
Right.
You know what I mean? That that's what I was trying to talk about. That it was so over sloganized. They over sloganized this term gangster rap, and that in so many ways, everyday people, as well as the government, could have really done so much more to really obliterate and eradicate of the things that were going on in the community.
Most stories would end right here, in bitterness, in 2 camps that never speak again. The easy ending, the expected one. But Alicia, Swizz, and the very woman who'd called her out in front of the world were about to do something almost nobody in this game ever does. And it started with a child's birthday party. The turning point didn't come from a publicist or a press release. It came from Mashonda, who one day extended an invitation. Come to KJ's 6th birthday. Sit with the weight in that. The woman who'd once written an open letter to the world, opening her door to the woman she'd written it about, all for the sake of a little boy who deserved both of them in the room. No script for that moment, no camera crew, just two women, and the quiet, uncomfortable choice to put a child above their pride. Anybody who's ever swallowed their ego for the sake of a kid knows exactly how hard that door is to open. It wasn't instant, and they've never pretended it was. By their own telling, it took something like 2 years of real work, the unglamorous, behind-closed-doors labor of healing, of mediation, of learning how to share a family the headlines had torn into pieces. Slowly, painfully, the three of them stopped being a love triangle and started becoming something the world barely had a word for, until Mashonda gave them one. A blend. Not a clean fix, not a fairy tale reset. A blend with all the lumps and edges that word carries.
I had to find the strength to really understand that I was good enough. And that helped me understand why I was creating these relationships in my life.
Alicia put it right there in the music. In 2016, she released Blended Family, a song that didn't hide from the drama, but walked straight into it, turning years of judgment into something honest and tender. 2 years later, in 2018, Mashonda published a whole book about it, called Blend, and the foreword was written by Alicia Keys herself. The two of them, plus Swizz, even sat down together on television, on camera, telling the world they'd become one family, the very thing nobody thought possible. Mashonda would later admit her old public call-out had come from a place of ego, a younger woman's hurt she'd since grown past. That kind of admission, said out loud, in public after everything, that's its own kind of courage. That's the part of the story the headlines never wanted to tell. It's easy to start a war, easy to pick a side and stay there forever, nursing the grudge like it's a badge of honor. To lay it down, though, to choose grace over being right, to build a home out of the very wreckage everybody expected you to drown in, that takes a kind of strength the gossip columns don't have a column for. For nearly a decade, that's exactly what held. The blend, the boys, the peace they fought so hard to earn, until 15 years in, when a single whisper from the internet threatened to set fire to all of it. It started the way so much does now, not in a newsroom, not from a reporter chasing a story, but from a gossip account chasing a click. In the summer of 2025, a rumor was put into the world that Swizz Beatz had fathered a child outside the marriage, that an outside baby had quietly ended the union folks had watched survive everything. No documents, no named sources, no reporting, just a rumor with a microphone. And in this age, that's all it takes to set a fire.
Well, she's a no-brainer. She has stunning beauty. She writes all her own songs. She's really the most gifted young female talent around.
A whisper doesn't stay a whisper for long. The claim got picked up, repeated, amplified, passed from one account to the next, and suddenly a story with no foundation was racing across timelines like it was gospel. Headlines screamed that the fairy tale had shattered, that 15 years had collapsed over betrayal, that Alicia Keys' love story was finally meeting the ending the internet had always half expected. The speed of it was dizzying. A lie can circle the globe before the truth has even tied its shoes. Maybe that's the part worth sitting with. Folks had waited a long time to see this woman fall. The same scandal that branded her at the start left a hunger in some corners of the internet. A quiet appetite for the day the too perfect story finally cracked. So when the whisper came, plenty of people didn't pause to ask if it was true. They just leaned in, ready to believe the worst about a love that had already paid its dues twice over. There's something almost cruel in that. The way the world will hold an old mistake over your head for 15 years, waiting for the encore. But this time, Alicia and Swizz weren't going to let the silence do their talking. Swizz Beatz did something the rumor mill never saw coming. No stiff lawyer's statement, no hiding behind a publicist. He posted a video of the two of them dancing, close and easy. The body language of people who had nowhere else they'd rather be. Over it, he dropped a line dripping with the kind of sarcasm only the truth can carry, joking that everybody knew they were divorced except the two of them, and that they'd found out on their 15-year anniversary vacation. Just like that, the whisper met its match. No press conference, no drama, just a husband and wife laughing in the face of a lie. The timing told the real story. That very summer, in July of 2025, Alicia and Swizz had quietly marked 15 years of marriage. Not separating, not splitting, but celebrating. Alicia posted her own truth to the world, simple and glowing, calling it 15 years of magic and saying they were just getting started. No outside baby, no collapse. Just a couple on an anniversary vacation, finding out from the internet that they were supposedly through. You almost have to laugh at the absurdity of it. The people in the marriage being the last to hear it was over. There's something poetic in how it landed. The same publicness that once crucified Alicia, that turned her private heartache into a homewrecker headline back in 2009, was now the very thing she and Swizz used to defend their joy. They let the cameras in on their own terms this time, flipped the script, and turned a moment meant to break them into proof of just how solid they'd become. That's growth, plain and simple. The girl who once had no control over her own story, who watched the world write her as the villain, had become a woman who could look a rumor dead in the eye and just keep dancing. So what does a love story that started in scandal, survived the judgment, and outlasted every whisper actually have to teach the rest of us? Look at the shape of it from up high. In 2009, Alicia Keys was a name attached to a broken home. A homewrecker headline, a woman the world had already decided it knew. By 2018, she was writing the foreword to a book her husband's ex-wife wrote about the family they built together. And by 2025, when a rumor came to tear it all down, she and Swizz answered not with panic, but with a dance, 15 years deep and still standing. That's not a fairy tale, because fairy tales are clean. This was something harder and realer, and far more human than any fairy tale ever earned. Alicia could have stayed a victim of her own beginning. She could have let the scandal define her, let the internet's appetite for her downfall write the final chapter. Instead, she helped turn the very people the headlines pitted against each other into a family, a blend, in her own word, and called it one of the things she's proudest of. That choice, made quietly and over years, says more about who she is than any chart position, any Grammy, any sold-out arena ever could. Anybody can sing about love. Few people get up every day and actually do the work of it. Maybe that's the lesson sitting underneath all of it. We love a clean story, a clear villain, a love that arrives without a price tag. But the truest ones rarely come that way. They come tangled, they come judged, they come carrying somebody else's hurt. And the people who make it through are the ones brave enough to do the unglamorous work of healing in front of a world that would rather watch them fall. Alicia Keys never got the clean story. What she got was a real one. And in the end, the realest love stories aren't the ones that start clean. They're the ones that survive the truth.